The Zephyrian ship moved through space like a silver arrow. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge, his blue skin glowing softly under the ship's lights. His 4 eyes scanned the star charts displayed before him. Something was wrong. "Commander," his navigator called out. "We are detecting energy readings from the Kepler 442 system." Vextar turned all 4 eyes toward the screen. The readings showed clear signs of advanced civilization. This was impossible. Just 50 cycles ago, their scouts had marked this system as empty. "No life, no technology, nothing but rocks and gas. Are you certain of these readings?" Vextar asked. "Yes, Commander. The energy signature is strong. Someone has built a colony on the 3rd planet." Vextar felt his heart skip a beat. In his 300 years of exploration, he had never seen a civilization appear so quickly. Most species took thousands of years to develop space technology. Even the fastest-growing civilizations needed at least 500 cycles. "Set course for the 3rd planet," he ordered, "but approach carefully. We do not know what we are dealing with." The ship changed direction and headed toward the unknown world. As they got closer, the readings became even more puzzling. The technology seemed primitive compared to Zephyrian standards, but it was working perfectly in an environment that should have killed any known life form. The planet itself was a nightmare world. The atmosphere contained poisonous gases. The gravity was much stronger than most species could handle. Radiation from the nearby star should have sterilized the surface long ago. Yet somehow life was thriving there. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." A strange face appeared on the screen. It had only 2 eyes positioned close together on the front of its head. The skin was pale pink and thin hair grew from the top of its skull. Despite its alien appearance, the creature was smiling. "Welcome to Haven's Rest," the being said in perfectly translated Galactic Standard. "I am Jake Morrison, colony leader. We have been watching your approach. Would you like to visit our world?" Vextar was shocked. Most species either ran away when they saw Zephyrian ships or prepared for war. This creature seemed genuinely happy to see them. "We are explorers from the Zephyrian Republic," Vextar replied carefully. "We did not know this system was inhabited. We only arrived here 3 years ago," Jake explained. "We came from a planet called Earth. Our ship had engine problems and we had to land here. We decided to stay and build a home. 3 years. Vextar could barely believe it. Building a thriving colony in 3 years on such a hostile world was beyond anything he had ever seen. "We would be honored to meet you in person," Jake continued. "If you are willing, you can land at our main settlement. We have prepared a welcome area for visitors." Vextar looked at his crew. They all seemed as confused as he felt, but curiosity won over caution. "We accept your invitation," he said. An hour later, Vextar and 3 of his officers stood on the surface of the alien world. The gravity pulled at them uncomfortably, and their environmental suits worked hard to filter out the poisonous atmosphere. Yet all around them, the humans worked without any protection at all. Jake Morrison approached them, still wearing that strange smile. He was tall, even taller than Vextar, with brown hair and green eyes. Behind him walked a woman with long black hair and dark skin. "This is Lisa Grant, our chief scientist," Jake said. "She is very excited to meet you. We have never encountered another intelligent species before." Lisa stepped forward and extended her hand. Vextar had read about this human gesture in his cultural database. He reached out and briefly touched her hand with his own. "We have so many questions," Lisa said. "Are there many species like yours in the galaxy? How long have you been traveling through space? What is your home world like?" Vextar found himself relaxing despite the hostile environment. These humans showed no fear, no aggression. They seemed genuinely curious about learning. "We have cataloged over 12,000 intelligent species," he replied. "The Zephyrian Republic has been exploring space for over 2,000 of your years. Our homeworld is much like this one, but with a thicker atmosphere and lower gravity." 12,000 species, Jake exclaimed. "That is amazing. We always wondered if we were alone in the universe." As they walked through the human settlement, Vextar became more and more puzzled. The humans had built their colony using simple materials and basic technology, yet everything worked perfectly. Their buildings stood strong against the harsh winds. Their power systems ran smoothly despite the radiation. Their crops grew in soil that should have been poisonous. "How do you survive here without environmental suits?" his science officer Cathara asked. Lisa laughed. "It was hard at first. Some of us got sick, but we adapted quickly. The human body is very good at adjusting to new environments. Kithara's eyes widened. No species adapted that quickly. It took generations for biological changes to occur. Yet these humans claim to have done it in just 3 years. Would you be willing to let us study your colony? Vextar asked. We are very interested in learning about your species. Of course, Jake replied. We would love to learn from you as well. Perhaps we can help each other. That evening, Vextar sat in his temporary quarters writing his report. Everything about these humans defied logic. They were friendly to strangers. They lived without fear on a world that should have killed them. They built a successful colony in an impossibly short time. Most disturbing of all, they were not in any Zephyrian database. In 2,000 years of exploration, the Zephyrians had never encountered anything like them. As he finished his report, Vextar looked out at the human settlement. Lights glowed warmly in the darkness. He could hear laughter and music drifting on the toxic wind. These strange beings had turned a world of death into a place of life. Tomorrow his team would begin their studies. They would try to understand how the humans had accomplished the impossible, but tonight Vextar simply watched and wondered what other surprises these remarkable creatures might reveal. Dr. Kithara had been studying alien biology for over 100 years. She had examined thousands of species from across the galaxy, but nothing had prepared her for what she found when she studied the humans. Her laboratory sat at the edge of the human settlement. Through the window, she could watch the colonists go about their daily work. What she saw made no sense according to everything she knew about biology. A human named Pete Johnson worked in the fields just outside her window. He wore only light clothing despite the poisonous atmosphere. His skin had a slight golden color that definitely had not been there when the Zephyrians first arrived a week ago. Most shocking of all, he was breathing the toxic air as if it were perfectly normal. This is impossible, Kithara muttered to herself as she reviewed her test results. She had run every scan known to Zephyrian science on volunteers from the human colony. The results showed biological changes that should have taken thousands of generations to develop. Yet these humans claimed their colony was only 3 years old. Katie Barnes, the human engineer, had agreed to daily testing. Each day, Kithara found new adaptations in her body. Her lung capacity had increased by 30%. Her blood carried oxygen more efficiently. Her skin produced natural protection against radiation. How do you feel? Kithara asked Katie during their morning session. I feel great, Katie replied cheerfully. Much better than when we first landed. I used to get tired easily in this gravity, but now it feels normal. Kithara checked her instruments again. Katie's bone density had increased significantly. Her muscle fibers had restructured themselves to handle the heavy gravity. These changes should have been impossible without genetic engineering. Katie, do you remember feeling sick when you first arrived? Oh yes, we all did. The first few months were terrible. Danny Miller was the worst. He could barely get out of bed. But then something changed. We all started feeling better. Now we feel stronger than we ever did on Earth. Danny Miller was another puzzle. The human mechanic had volunteered for extensive testing. His body showed the most dramatic changes of any colonist. His cellular structure had altered itself to process toxins that would kill most known life forms. When Kithara interviewed Danny, she found his story hard to believe. I was dying, Danny told her honestly. The doctors said my liver was failing. The toxins in the air were too much for my body. Then one morning I woke up feeling completely fine. Better than fine, actually. I felt like I could work all day without getting tired. Kithara had taken tissue samples from Danny with his permission. Under the microscope, his cells looked like nothing she had ever seen. They were constantly changing, adapting, improving. It was as if his body was learning how to survive in real time. But the children were the most shocking of all. Amy Brooks taught at the colony school. She had brought her students to meet Kithara, and the Zephyrian scientist nearly dropped her instruments when she scanned them. 8-year-old Sam Wright showed genetic markers that suggested he could survive in almost any environment. His sister Mia Clark, who was 10, seemed to be developing enhanced mental abilities. Both children had been born on Earth, yet their bodies were already perfectly adapted to this hostile world. Have you noticed any changes in the children since you arrived? Kithara asked Amy. They are much healthier than they were on Earth, Amy replied. They rarely get sick. They learn faster. They seem to understand things that adults struggle with. Yesterday, Sam helped Pete fix a broken water purifier without any training. He just seemed to know how it worked. This was beyond adaptation. This was something entirely different. Cathara decided to run a comparison test. She examined tissue samples from humans, Cephirians, and 5 other known species. The results left her staring at her computer screen in disbelief. Human DNA was unlike anything in the galactic databases. It was incredibly complex with vast sections that seemed inactive, but on closer examination, those inactive sections were not random. They contained sophisticated genetic codes that appeared to be waiting for activation. Most species had linear genetic development. Their DNA followed predictable patterns that changed slowly over time. Human DNA was different. It was like a vast library of genetic possibilities, ready to be unlocked when needed. "Commander," Cathara called Vextar over the communication system. "You need to see this immediately." When Vextar arrived at the laboratory, Cathara showed him her findings. The commander listened in silence as she explained the impossible biology of the human colonists. "Are you certain of these results?" he asked. "I have checked them dozens of times. I have run every test I know. The humans are not just adapting to this environment. They are transforming into something specifically designed to thrive here." Vextar looked out the window at the human settlement. Pete Johnson was still working in the fields, now joined by several other colonists. They moved with easy confidence in conditions that would kill most galactic species within hours. "Have you found any explanation for this ability?" he asked. "None that makes sense. According to everything we know about biology, this should be impossible. Genetic adaptation requires thousands of generations. These humans are doing it in months, maybe weeks." Cathara pulled up another screen showing cellular activity. "Look at this. These are human cells taken yesterday. Watch what happens when I expose them to different toxins." On the screen, the cells shifted and changed as different poisons were introduced. They developed resistance to each toxin within minutes. It was like watching evolution happen in fast motion. "There is something else," Cathara continued. "I have been comparing human DNA to samples in our galactic database. There are similarities to ancient genetic markers found on dozens of different worlds." "What kind of similarities?" "The kind that suggest common ancestry. But that is impossible. Humans claim they evolved on Earth. They have no history of space travel before their recent colonization missions." Vextar felt a chill run through his body. Ancient genetic markers found across multiple worlds could only mean one thing, but that possibility was too incredible to consider. "Continue your research," he ordered. "I want answers. And contact the Galactic Council. They need to know what we have found here." As Vextar left the laboratory, he looked back at the human settlement one more time. The colonists were preparing for their evening meal. Children played in the streets while adults finished their work. It looked like any normal settlement anywhere in the galaxy. But nothing about these humans was normal. They were something entirely new. Or perhaps something very, very old. Commander Vextar sat in his private quarters, staring at the message from the Galactic Council. Their response to his report was not what he had expected. "Your findings are rejected," the message stated clearly. "No species can adapt at the rate you describe. You must have made errors in your testing. Send corrected data immediately." Vextar felt anger building in his chest. He had sent detailed reports with video evidence and genetic analysis. The council was refusing to believe what was right in front of them. He decided to investigate further on his own. The next morning, Vextar visited the human settlement's library. It was a small building filled with books and computer records that the colonists had brought from Earth. Carl Davis, the colony historian, welcomed him warmly. "I am interested in learning about human history," Vextar explained, "particularly your early development as a species." Carl smiled and led him to a table covered with thick books. "Human history is fascinating but also quite violent. We have faced many challenges over the years." As Carl described human history, Vextar began to see a pattern. Every few thousand years, humans faced catastrophic events that should have destroyed them. Ice ages that lasted for generations, plagues that killed most of the population, wars that devastated entire continents, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. Yet humanity survived every disaster. More than survived, they grew stronger. "Tell me about the ice ages," Vextar requested. "Ah, those were terrible times," Carl said, opening an ancient text. "The planet became so cold that most life died. Humans had to learn to survive in frozen wastelands with very little food. How did they survive? They adapted. They learned to make fire, build shelters, hunt new animals. When the ice finally melted, humans had spread across the entire planet. Vextar made notes as Carl continued. The pattern was always the same. Disaster struck. Most humans died. The survivors adapted and became stronger than before. What about diseases? Vextar asked. Carl pulled out another book. The Great Plague killed half the population of Europe in just a few years. But the survivors developed immunity. Their children were resistant to diseases that had killed their grandparents. And wars? Every war taught us something new. We learned to work together, to build better tools, to solve problems faster. Even our worst conflicts made us stronger as a species. That afternoon, Vextar met with Emma Stone, the colony librarian. She had been collecting stories and legends from different human cultures. "Commander, you might find these interesting," Emma said, showing him a collection of ancient myths. Every human culture has stories about the time before. They call them different names, but the stories are very similar. She opened a book to a page covered with strange symbols. This is from ancient Mesopotamia. They wrote about the Star Walkers who came from the sky and taught humans how to live. Vextar felt his heart skip. Star Walkers was an ancient Zephyrian term. The Egyptians called them sky gods, Emma continued. The Native Americans called them star people. The Chinese called them celestial dragons. Different names, but they all describe beings who came from space and helped early humans. What did these beings supposedly do? They taught humans agriculture, mathematics, astronomy. But more than that, they supposedly gave humans special gifts, the ability to adapt, to survive, to grow stronger through hardship. Emma showed him more books filled with similar stories. Every human culture remembered a time when beings from the stars had visited Earth and changed humanity forever. Most scholars think these are just myths, Emma explained. But some of the details are surprisingly accurate. Ancient texts describe star maps that were not discovered by modern astronomy until recently. That evening, Vextar called Dr. Cathera to his quarters. Together, they reviewed all the evidence they had gathered. "The genetic markers you found," Vextar said. "Show me the analysis again." Cathera pulled up her research on the room's display screen. "These sections of human DNA match samples we have found on ancient ruins across the galaxy. The Acarian tomb worlds, the vegan crystal cities, the ruins on Proxima 7. All sites associated with the first ones," Vextar said quietly. "The first ones were legendary. Every species in the galaxy had stories about them. Ancient beings who had traveled the stars long before any current civilization existed. They had supposedly seeded life throughout the galaxy, then vanished without a trace." "You think the humans are connected to the first ones?" Cathera asked. "I think the humans are the first ones," Vextar replied, "or what remains of them." The idea was incredible, but it explained everything. The rapid adaptation, the complex DNA, the ancient genetic markers, the myths and legends found in every human culture. But how is that possible? Cathera asked. "The first ones disappeared millions of years ago." What if they did not disappear? What if they went back to their origin world and forgot their own power? Vextar began pacing the room as the pieces fell into place. Think about it. Every disaster in human history should have destroyed them. Instead, it made them stronger. They have been unconsciously using abilities they do not remember having. And now they are starting to remember. Contact with us, exposure to alien environments, it is triggering something in their genetics. They are becoming what they once were. Cathera stared at the genetic analysis on the screen. "If you are right, then these humans are not just another species. They are the ancestors of all galactic civilization. And they are waking up," Vextar added. As if to prove his point, a communication alert sounded. The message was from Jake Morrison. "Commander Vextar, we need to talk. Something strange is happening to our children. They are developing abilities that should not be possible. Can you come to the settlement immediately?" Vextar and Cathera looked at each other. The awakening had begun. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," Vextar ordered. "Tell them we have confirmed the identity of the humans, and warn them that everything is about to change." As they prepared to return to the human settlement, Vextar could not help but wonder what they would find. If the humans truly were the first ones, then their awakening would reshape the entire galaxy. The question was whether that change would be peaceful or catastrophic. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. Despite the Galactic Council's attempts to keep the information secret, word of the human discovery leaked to every major civilization. Ancient libraries that had been forgotten for centuries suddenly became important again. Archaeologists rushed to dig sites that had been abandoned. Religious leaders studied old texts with new understanding. The galaxy was buzzing with excitement and fear. On Haven's Rest, the changes in the human colonists were becoming impossible to ignore. 10-year-old Sam Wright sat in Dr. Kethera's laboratory, calmly explaining how he had fixed the settlement's main power generator. It was making a funny noise, Sam said in his young voice. I could tell that the energy flow was wrong, so I went inside and moved some of the connections around. Kethera looked at the technical readouts from the generator. Sam's modifications had improved its efficiency by 40%. The changes required knowledge of advanced engineering that no child should possess. Sam, how did you know what to do? She asked gently. I just knew, Sam replied with a shrug. It was like the machine was talking to me. I could see where the energy wanted to flow. His sister Mia was even more puzzling. The 12-year-old had started speaking perfect Zephyrian without any lessons. She also seemed to understand languages from species she had never met. The words just make sense, Mia explained to Amy Brooks, her teacher. It is like I have heard them before, even though I know I have not. But it was not just the children. Adult colonists were developing abilities that defied explanation. Tony Adams, who worked in construction, had discovered he could shape metal with his bare hands. The process seemed to happen at the molecular level, with the metal flowing like liquid under his touch. I was trying to fix a bent support beam, Tony told Jake Morrison. I got frustrated and grabbed it with both hands. Next thing I knew, it was perfectly straight. Better than new, actually. Nancy Bell, the settlement's cook, had developed an even stranger ability. She could make food that perfectly matched the nutritional needs of anyone who ate it. Zephyrian visitors found that her meals helped them adapt to the planet's harsh environment. I just think about what people need while I am cooking, Nancy explained to Lisa Grant. It feels natural, like I have always known how to do it. Dr. Ben Hayes, the colony's doctor, was documenting all these changes. His medical records showed genetic activity unlike anything in known science. It is as if their DNA is unlocking itself, he told psychologist Janet Cruz. Dormant sections are becoming active, but the changes are happening so fast that it should be killing them. Instead, they are healthier than ever. Janet had been studying the psychological effects of the changes. The most interesting thing is that they are not surprised by their new abilities. It is like they expected this to happen. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species were making disturbing discoveries. The Andromedan archives revealed ancient texts describing the world shapers who had taught their ancestors to build cities among the stars. The descriptions matched human appearance perfectly. The Crystalline Collective found references to fleshwalkers who had shown them how to communicate across vast distances. Their ancient songs spoke of beings who could think and change reality. Most shocking of all, the warlike Vortak Empire discovered that their greatest military traditions came from teachings of the Eternal Wanderers. These mysterious beings had supposedly taught the Vortak how to fight and survive, then disappeared into legend. Every major civilization in the galaxy has stories about humans, reported Ambassador Zexrin to the Galactic Council. They were here before. They taught us everything we know. The council was in chaos. Emergency sessions were called daily. Some members wanted to destroy the human colony before the humans became too powerful. Others wanted to study them. A few suggested worshipping them as the returning gods of ancient legend. On Haven's Rest, Commander Vextar watched these developments with growing concern. He had received orders to contain the situation, but he was not sure that was possible anymore. The human abilities were growing stronger every day. Yesterday, young Sam Wright had repaired a Zephyrian shuttle by simply looking at it. The boy had made improvements to the engine that Zephyrian engineers had not thought possible. Commander, Dr. Kethera called from her laboratory. You need to see this immediately. When Vextar arrived, he found Kethera staring at a holographic display showing the DNA of the human colonists. Look at the genetic activity from this morning, she said, pointing to the swirling patterns of light. The changes are accelerating. At this rate, the humans will be completely transformed within weeks. Transformed into what? Into what they used to be. Their genetic memory is awakening. They are remembering abilities that have been dormant for millions of years. As if summoned by their conversation, Jake Morrison appeared at the laboratory door. But something was different about the colony leader. His eyes seemed to glow with inner light, and the air around him shimmered slightly. "Commander Vextar," Jake said, his voice carrying a strange resonance. "We need to talk, all of us. The memories are coming back." Behind Jake stood other colonists. Lisa Grant's hands glowed with soft energy. Pete Johnson's skin had a metallic sheen that reflected the laboratory lights. Katie Barnes seemed to float slightly above the ground. "We remember now," Lisa said, her voice filled with ancient sadness. "We remember what we were, what we lost, what we must become again. The galaxy is in danger," Pete added. "There are threats coming that only we can stop. But first we must help our people remember who they really are." Vextar felt a chill of fear and wonder. The humans were not just awakening to their true nature. They were preparing for something much larger. "What threats?" he asked. Jake's expression grew serious. "The same ones that made us forget ourselves the first time. They are returning, and this time we will be ready." Outside the laboratory, Vexatar could see the night sky through the windows. In the distance, lights were approaching. Many lights. The Galactic Council fleet had arrived, and they were not coming in peace. The real test was about to begin. The Galactic Council fleet filled the sky above Haven's Rest. 300 ships from dozens of different species hung in the darkness like angry stars. Their weapons were charged and ready. Admiral Krexvoll of the Council forces sent a message to the human settlement. His voice was cold and final. "Humans of Haven's Rest, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Your species presents an unacceptable threat to galactic security. You will be relocated to a secure facility for study and containment." In the settlement below, the colonists gathered in the main square. But they were no longer the same humans who had welcomed Vextar just weeks ago. The awakening was complete. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the group, his body surrounded by a soft aura of light. His eyes held the wisdom of ancient ages, yet his face remained kind and human. "We do not wish to fight," Jake replied to the Admiral's ultimatum. "We want only to help heal what has been broken." "You have no choice in this matter," Admiral Krexvoll responded. "Prepare for boarding." Commander Vextar stood between the two forces, torn between duty and friendship. He had grown to care for these humans over the past weeks. But his orders from the Council were clear. "Jake," Vextar said quietly, "please surrender. I will make sure you are treated fairly." Jake smiled sadly. "Old friend, you still do not understand. We are not the threat. We are the solution." As the first Council ships began their descent, young Sam Wright stepped forward. The boy looked up at the massive fleet without fear. "May I show them?" Sam asked Jake. Jake nodded. "Be gentle, Sam. They are afraid." Sam closed his eyes and raised his small hands toward the sky. What happened next would be remembered across the galaxy for generations. The Council ship simply stopped. 300 warships carrying the most advanced weapons in known space hung motionless in the air. Their engines still ran, their weapons still functioned, but they could not move. But Sam had done more than stop the ships. He had connected with every mind in the fleet. Admiral Krexvoll and his crew suddenly saw the truth. Not through words or explanations, but through direct understanding. They saw the history of the galaxy as it really was. They saw the first ones who had traveled between stars when their own species were still learning to make fire. They saw how the first ones had seeded life on thousands of worlds, guiding the development of countless civilizations. They saw the great catastrophe that had forced the first ones to retreat to their origin world. A cosmic threat so terrible that even their advanced abilities could not stop it. The first ones had chosen to forget their power rather than watch it be corrupted. Most importantly, they saw that the threat was returning. In his ship high above, Admiral Krexvoll felt tears streaming down his face. The pride and fear that had driven him to attack dissolved into understanding. "Stand down," he ordered his fleet. "All ships stand down immediately." The weapons powered down. The ships began to descend peacefully toward the settlement. As the Admiral's shuttle landed in the main square, Sam Wright collapsed. The effort of connecting with so many minds had exhausted the young boy. His sister Mia caught him as he fell. "I am okay," Sam whispered. "They understand now." Admiral Krexvoll emerged from his shuttle, his military bearing replaced by something approaching reverence. Behind him came representatives from every major species in the galaxy. "Forgive us," the Admiral said, kneeling before Jake Morrison. "We did not know. We did not remember. Jake helped the Admiral to his feet. There is nothing to forgive. Fear makes us all forget who we truly are. Lisa Grant stepped forward, her hands still glowing with inner energy. The threat that made us retreat is coming back. We can sense it approaching from beyond the galaxy's edge. Dark ships carrying an intelligence that feeds on conflict and destruction. How long do we have? Asked Ambassador Zexrin of the Galactic Council. Perhaps 50 years, replied Pete Johnson, his transformed senses reaching out across space. Maybe less. What can we do? Admiral Krexval asked. Jake looked around at the gathered representatives of galactic civilization. We can do what the first ones should have done long ago. We can work together. Katie Barnes, now floating several feet off the ground, gestured toward the stars. Every species in the galaxy has abilities you have forgotten, gifts that were given to your ancestors by the first ones. We can help you remember. Over the following days, the truth spread throughout the galaxy. Ancient genetic codes began activating in species that had forgotten their true potential. The Zephyrians rediscovered their ability to navigate by instinct. The Crystalline Collective remembered how to heal damaged worlds. The Vortak Empire found their true purpose as protectors rather than conquerors. On Haven's Rest, a new kind of civilization began to take shape. Humans worked alongside beings from hundreds of different worlds, sharing knowledge and abilities that had been lost for millions of years. Dr. Ben Hayes established medical centers where human healing abilities could be taught to alien doctors. Tony Adams showed engineers from across the galaxy how to work with materials at the molecular level. Nancy Bell's cooking became a model for creating food that could nourish any form of life. But it was the children who showed the greatest promise. Sam Wright and Mia Clark worked with young beings from other species, teaching them to unlock abilities that their peoples had forgotten. A new generation was growing up that would be ready for the coming darkness. Commander Vextar, now serving as liaison between the humans and the Galactic Council, watched these developments with wonder. "You have given us hope," he told Jake Morrison as they stood watching the sunset over Haven's Rest. "We have given you back what was always yours." Jake replied, "The galaxy was meant to be united, not under one ruler but as one family." As the stars appeared in the evening sky, Sam Wright joined them on the observation deck. The boy's eyes held depths that seemed far older than his years. "The dark ships are still coming," Sam said quietly, "but they will find something different than they expect. They will find a galaxy that remembers how to fight together." In the distance, ships from 100 different worlds were landing at the expanding settlement. Representatives, students, teachers, and dreamers, all coming to learn how to reclaim their heritage. The humans had awakened not just to their own true nature, but to their role as gardeners of galactic civilization. The first ones had returned not as conquerors, but as the nurturing parents the galaxy had always needed. And in the growing darkness between the stars, ancient enemies would soon discover that their long-awaited prey had grown far stronger than they had ever imagined possible. The age of forgetting was over. The age of remembering had begun.